Drop the boss lady tone, Jennifer. My sister Elena brought the phone close to her face, smiling sharp and cruel. Behind her, I saw a sledgehammer resting against the smashed remains of my vintage brick oven. Mom and Dad agreed this place is outdated. I need a showroom for my floral art. You were just the placeholder. Now be a good sister and sign the transfer, or I will tell everyone you abandoned the family business. I watched her kick a pile of debris. My grandmother's handwritten recipe book was lying there, torn and covered in brick dust. My night manager, Sarah, was holding the phone, sobbing. She had called me moments ago to say my parents had arrived with a locksmith, lying that I authorized them to break in for emergency waterproofing. I gripped my phone, but I forced my voice to stay steady. Get your team out now, Sarah, I said. Do not engage. I am transferring your payroll to my personal holding company effective immediately. Your jobs are safe. Then I looked at Elena one last time. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I took a screenshot. Okay, I said. And I hung up. To understand why I didn't scream, why I didn't book the first flight home to stop them, you have to understand the math of my family. For 32 years, I have been the asset, and my sister Elena has been the liability. My parents never saw it that way, of course. To them, Elena was the dream, the artist, the fragile genius who just needed one more chance to shine. I was the machinery that kept the lights on. I built the crust and crumb not with family money, but with 8 years of 3 o'clock alarms and burns on my forearms that never quite healed. I didn't just learn to bake. I learned to survive in a city that eats small businesses alive. I spent nights studying municipal heritage codes and structural engineering permits, because our building is a Class 1 historic site. I know every brick, every load-bearing beam, and every clause in the lease that says if you damage the structure, you go to prison. I built a valuation of $250,000 from flour and grit. Elena, on the other hand, built debt. First, it was the bespoke jewelry line that cost my parents $40,000 before she got bored of threading beads. Then it was the ethical swimwear brand that failed because she forgot to pay the manufacturer. Each time, my parents came to me. Jennifer, my mother would say, her voice thick with guilt. Your sister is in trouble. We need to help her. It's just money. You can always make more, and I always did. I paid off her suppliers. I covered her rent. I cleaned up the messes she made while chasing her aesthetic. They never respected the bakery. To them, it was just a hot, loud room where I sweated so I could write checks. They didn't see a business. They saw a location, a cool, vintage backdrop that I was selfishly hoarding. When Elena decided she wanted to be a florist last month, I should have known this was coming. She didn't want to find a shop. She wanted my shop. She wanted the exposed brick walls and the high ceilings without the years of labor it took to secure them. I sat on the edge of that hotel bed, staring at the screenshot of Elena holding the hammer. The look on her face wasn't just greed. It was righteousness. She truly believed she was doing me a favor by destroying my life's work. She thought she was upgrading the family brand. For the first time in my life, the exhaustion outweighed the guilt. I realized they didn't love me. They loved my utility. And now that they thought they could seize the asset without the operator, they were discarding me. If I flew home and stopped them, I would be the villain. I would be the jealous sister crushing Elena's dream. They would gaslight me until I apologized for saving my own property. So, I decided to stop being the safety net. If Elena wanted to be the boss, she needed to experience the one thing I had always shielded her from: consequences. I opened my laptop. I wasn't going to fight them. I was going to give them exactly what they asked for. I sat in the darkness of that hotel room for a long time, watching the city lights of Paris flicker outside. My first instinct was to fight. I wanted to call the police, call my lawyer, book a flight, and scream until my throat bled. But then I remembered something my first business mentor taught me about judo. When an opponent rushes at you with full force, you don't plant your feet and block them. If you do, you get crushed. Instead, you step aside, grab their sleeve, and pull them harder in the direction they are already going. You use their own momentum to break them. Elena was rushing at me with a sledgehammer and a lifetime of entitlement. If I stopped her now, she would play the victim. She would cry to our parents that I crushed her dreams. They would say I was jealous. They would say I cared more about bricks than family. The narrative would remain the same. Jennifer is the mean, selfish sister. So, I decided to pull. I opened my laptop. I didn't book a flight. I opened a legal template. If Elena wanted to be the owner, she needed to be the owner of everything, including the liability. I drafted a document titled Transfer of Management and Renovation Rights. To the untrained eye, it looked like a surrender. It looked like I was handing over the keys to the kingdom. But I knew my sister. I knew she wouldn't read the fine print if she saw a dollar sign. So, I added the bait. I inserted a clause at the very top. Upon execution of this agreement, the current operating cash of $15,000 will be released to the project manager for immediate renovation costs. I knew that number would blind her. $15,000 was enough to buy the imported hydrangeas she probably already had in her cart. It was enough to make her feel like she had won the lottery. Then, I buried the poison pills. Deep in Section 4. Clause 4.2. The project manager assumes full personal liability for all structural alterations, code violations, and heritage compliance. And in Section 6, Clause 6.1. The guarantors agree to indemnify the landlord and previous leaseholder for all damages to the heritage site, up to the full value of the lease. I sent the email to my parents and Elena. I kept the message short and defeated. You win, I wrote. I'm tired of fighting. The space is yours. Just sign this so I can transfer the operating cash and clear my name from the utility bills. Once it's signed, the money is yours. I waited. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the gamble. I was betting my entire livelihood on their greed. If they showed this to a lawyer, I was done. If they read past page 1, they would stop. 10 minutes later, my phone pinged. Document signed. Elena Hart. Document signed. Robert Hart. Document signed. Susan Hart. They hadn't even taken the time to scroll. They saw the $15,000, and they signed their names to a death warrant. I looked at the digital signatures. The timestamps proving they did this of their own free will. I didn't feel happy. I felt a cold, heavy finality. They had just authorized their own destruction, and they thought it was a victory lap. For the next 2 weeks, I didn't exist. I stayed in Paris, but I didn't see the city. I sat in my hotel room with the blinds drawn, my laptop glowing in the dark, watching my sister dismantle my life through the screen of my phone. Elena didn't just renovate. She performed. She posted 20 stories a day. Liberating this space, she captioned a video of a contractor sledgehammering the vintage tile I had imported from Italy. Sometimes you have to destroy the old to make way for the beautiful. I watched her tear down the load-bearing brick wall. I watched her brag about the open concept she had designed herself. I watched her followers cheer her on, calling her a visionary, while my parents commented with heart emojis and praise for her boldness. They were so proud, they were so loud, and they were documenting every single felony in real time. It was tempting to intervene. Every instinct in my body screamed to call her, to warn her that the ceiling was going to come down, to stop her before she ruined everything. But then I remembered the contract, Clause 4.2. If I intervened, if I offered even one piece of advice, I could be seen as reassuming liability. I had to be a ghost. I had to let them hang themselves with the rope I had handed them. But I wasn't just watching, I was working. I pulled up the municipal directory. I didn't call the police. The police don't care about bad renovations. I called the city building safety hotline. I didn't use my name. I used the code. I am reporting an imminent structural collapse hazard at a Class 1 heritage site, I told the dispatcher, my voice flat and professional. There is unauthorized demolition of a primary load-bearing wall occurring right now. The address is 42 High Street. Check the Instagram account Elena Blooms for live evidence. The dispatcher's tone changed instantly. Class 1 heritage? She asked. Yes, I said. And the building is occupied on the upper floors. That was the key. Heritage violations get you a fine. Risking the lives of tenants gets you a code red emergency response. I hung up and booked a flight home. I timed it perfectly. I wouldn't be there to stop the demolition. I would be there for the opening. I wanted to see their faces when the dust settled. I wanted to be in the room when they realized that gravity doesn't care about your aesthetic, and the law doesn't care about your feelings. I landed in the city the night before the grand opening. I didn't go to my apartment. I stayed at a hotel downtown. I checked my email one last time. A notification from the city planning office confirmed a priority inspection was scheduled for 10 in the morning the next day. Exactly 1 hour after Elena opened her doors. The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for it to snap. I parked my rental car across the street from Elena's Blooms at 9:30 in the morning. From my vantage point, the place looked like a magazine cover. The windows were gleaming, filled with explosions of pink peonies and white roses. A white ribbon stretched across the front door. Elena had even hired a valet service. Cars were already pulling up, disgorging local influencers and my parents' social circle. Everyone dressed in pastels, everyone smiling for the cameras. I pulled up the livestream on my phone. Elena was inside, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by a crowd of admirers. She looked radiant. She looked like she had won. I just want to thank my parents, she was saying to the camera, her voice thick with emotion. They believed in my vision when no one else did. They helped me liberate this space from its dark, industrial past and turn it into something full of light and life. My parents were beaming beside her. My father had his arm around her shoulders, looking prouder than I had ever seen him. My mother was telling a group of women, "We just had to step in." Jennifer was burnt out. She didn't have the energy to manage a property like this anymore. Elena has breathed new life into it. I watched them bask in the adulation. The hubris was suffocating. They weren't just taking credit. They were rewriting history. They were erasing 8 years of my life and replacing it with a narrative where they were the saviors and I was the obstacle. But as the camera panned around the room, I saw something else. Something the guests were too busy drinking to notice. Above the new, sleek archway where the brick wall used to be, a fine, white mist was drifting down. Plaster dust. And right in the center of the ceiling beam, a hairline crack was zigzagging outward like a lightning bolt. The building was groaning. The load-bearing wall they had removed was the spine of the structure, and without it, the century-old timber beams were starting to sag. They were partying inside a collapsing lung. I didn't feel fear. I felt a cold, clinical detachment. I checked my watch. 9:55. A black sedan pulled up to the curb a few cars down from me. My attorney, calm and professional, stepped out holding a leather folio. 2 minutes later, a white city van screeched to a halt in the loading zone. The side door slid open, and the chief building inspector stepped out, adjusting his high-visibility vest. He looked angry. He looked like a man who hates being called out on a Saturday for a code red. He flagged down the cruiser behind him, and a wall of authority vests, badges, clipboards, moved for the entrance. Inside, Elena lifted her glass. To new beginnings. On my screen, the doors flew open. The music died. The crowd spun as the inspector strode through the flowers, aimed a laser measure at the sagging beam, and someone yelled, "Cut the feed." Elena didn't. She froze. The trap had snapped shut, and I watched it all from my car. The shop went dead quiet. The kind that happens when prey senses a predator. The fire marshal ignored my mother's outstretched hand and went straight to the torn archway and the widening crack above it, dust sifting down onto the arrangements. He peeled a bright orange sticker and slapped it onto the glass. "Unsafe, do not enter. This building is structurally compromised," he announced. "Immediate evacuation. This is a crime scene." Elena stumbled back, knocked over a vase, water pooling around her designer heels. The livestream kept rolling as her face shifted from smug to terrified and, like always, she pointed at me. "It's not mine," she shrieked. "It's my sister's, Jennifer Hart. She owns the lease. Arrest her." My parents joined in instantly, insisting I was the negligent owner, and they were only cleaning up my mess. It didn't hurt. It confirmed everything. Then the back door opened and my attorney, Mr. Sterling, stepped into view. He raised a small remote and killed Elena's projected logo. A crisp PDF replaced it. "Actually, Inspector," he said calmly, "that's incorrect. It was the transfer of management and renovation rights." Sterling clicked to clause 4.2. The project manager assumes full personal, legal, and structural liability for all alterations. He displayed the $15,000 payment receipt accepted by Elena, proving the contract was active. Elena stared at her own signature, silent. Sterling clicked again and played her Instagram story from 2 days earlier. Elena laughing with a sledgehammer. I decided the wall had to go. It was my vision. The room's silence changed from confusion to horror. Elena had treated a load-bearing structure like decor, and gravity was collecting the debt. The chief building inspector stepped forward. "Demolition of a class. One heritage structure without a permit is a felony." He handed Elena the citation. $300,000, plus emergency shoring. Elena dropped the paper. "I don't have that money," the landlord's legal rep followed. "Due to criminal negligence, we're triggering the acceleration clause. The remaining 3 years of rent are due immediately, $180,000. My mother wailed that they couldn't pay. Sterling zoomed to the bottom of the contract. Clause 6.1 Personal Guarantors. Robert and Susan Hart. "You indemnified the landlord," he said, almost gently. "If she can't pay, liability transfers to your assets." He looked at my father. "The bank will initiate a lien on your primary residence by Monday." My father stared at the signatures, then at Elena sobbing among wet flowers, and finally at the security camera, realizing I wasn't just gone. I was watching. 3 days after the red tag, the insurer sent a 1-page decision. Claim denied, coverage void, due to intentional illegal acts by the policyholder's authorized agent. Elena's bragging video saved them $500,000. That left my parents. Within 30 days, their house was headed toward foreclosure to cover structural damages and accelerated rent. They ended up in a small rental at the edge of town, blaming Elena, never themselves. Elena filed for personal bankruptcy. Her brand and influencer circle vanished the moment the police report hit. She tried to claim I tricked her, but the internet had receipts. Her sledgehammer clip turned into a meme. She was uninsurable. No landlord would touch her. I didn't lose everything. My business interruption policy triggered the moment the city ordered closure, and because the damage was classified under a third-party contractor, the payout was fast and full. I took the check and did what I'd planned before they tried to take my life's work. I leased a new space, an industrial production unit, not a fragile heritage storefront. No sign, no foot traffic, just a serious kitchen built for volume. Yesterday morning, it smelled like yeast and victory. Sarah pulled golden croissants from the new deck oven and smiled. Orders are up 20%. She ran operations now, paid like it. I didn't write a long letter. I attached the denial notice and sent 2 lines to the family group chat. You wanted the space. You own the consequences. Then I blocked my mother, my father, and Elena. I put my phone away, walked to the butcher block table, and sank my hands into warm, living dough mine. For the first time in my life. Have you ever had to watch someone destroy what you built just to teach them a lesson? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from.